Hello, my name is Hadley Thorne, and I am part of the admin team here at Horror Writers Inc. However, you might know me better from my series Tapestry of Worlds or from my podcast Weird Realities, where I watch Weird every Thursday with Alan Gamboa, Rich Restucci, and Scott Baker live right here on Thursdays. Tonight, to my delight, we will be bringing together some of the amazing and horrific writers here at Horror Writers Inc. And joining me is Bethany Stutsman, D.W. Hitz, and Shawn Chesser. I'm hoping that J.B. Havens is going to jump on later. And unfortunately, Mr. Jonathan Mayberry was feeling under the weather and won't be joining us. Hey, guys, how are y'all doing?
Good.
Doing well, great. Glad to be here.
Awesome. So, y'all want to start off with my list? We'll get silly, just right to it, rip the Band-Aid off, right? So, if you could time travel, would you go to the past or future?
Ladies first.
Oh, I would go to the future because I feel that it would be exciting. I don't know, and maybe do the whole Biff thing from Back to the Future. Like I would do that. I'd get all the info and I'd come back and I'd make money. That's what I'd do.
Smart girl.
Yeah.
What about you, Shawn?
You know, it's kind of somber, but I'd go back 2.5 years to May 20 before that, 2019, and I'd have some words with my dad. He killed himself, and a lot of things left unsaid. We're on good terms, but it just hit out of the blue.
Yeah, well, I'm sorry to hear that.
Hands down.
And DW, what about you?
Oh, I don't know. That's a tricky one. So part of me thinks, let's go to the future and let's see what's changed and see where humanity's gone. And then part of me thinks, well, what if you get there and everything is a nuclear holocaust and you kind of zap into something you have no way out of. But I'd really like to go to the past. I think it'd be really cool to go to a place where there's no technology and really be able to soak in the nature of the living without all the electricity running our lives.
Cool. Well, for the future, I think we're heading toward idiocracy. So
we're not already there.
We're really close. And I agree. I think going to the past could be fun as well. I'm a history person, and I think there's so many places and time periods I'd really like to see for myself. So, all right, now, so which cartoon character was your favorite as a child?
Oh, Scrooge McDuck.
Good answer. Good answer.
I'm feeling a theme with my answers right now. No, he was so fun. He was always on adventures. Like he did, he liked the money, but at the same time, he was just adventures and he loved his nephews. And I love DuckTales. Like I still rock to that theme song. It's a good theme song.
All right, Shawn, what about you?
I like Roadrunner. He always seems to get over on the coyote. He's a crafty bird.
And DW, what about you?
Yeah, I might go with Looney Tunes as well. I always thought Bugs was the cream of the crop. He knew what music to listen to, and he also knew how to get around on everyone who was after him. That was always a lot of fun to me.
He was a crafty rabbit for sure.
Yeah. He also makes my daughter smile. I think I introduced her to the old Looney Tunes a while back, and that became her favorite show for a good 6 years or 6 months or so.
Hey, Angel. Thanks for showing up.
Hello.
Let's see. So, what animal best represents you, and why?
I would go with a domestic house cat from like a nice lazy family. I just want to lay around and nap all day. That's pretty much what I'm down for right now.
Shawn, what about you?
Man, this is tough. I wish I would have looked at these beforehand. I don't know. It's very tough. I'd probably want to be a raptor. That's one type of bird. A hawk, maybe. Just floating on the thermals. As a human, I've always wanted to fly and have yet to pilot anything, but that would be it.
That's pretty cool. What about you, DW?
Yeah, that's a really cool answer. Yeah, I want to say probably a something like a lion or a tiger. Let me get out my aggression, get in my dinner, and then sleep the rest of the time.
Well, I see that Dottie has a question. If you could write a sequel to any movie, which one would it be and why?
I would go for John Constantine. Or not John. I'm thinking John Wick and Constantine, all Keanu Reeves. But I would go for Constantine because I really love that first movie, and I think Keanu just killed it as the character. And I think it would be really fun to see a sequel to that.
I agree. What about you, Shawn?
Man, that's another tough question. Shoot, let's see here. Sequel to the movie. Well, I've been itching to see Top Gun, the new one, come out, but it's been pushed so far back. I'm gonna defer to HW for just a minute, please.
I'm sitting here thinking maybe something like a Fight Club would be kind of interesting.
Oh, yeah.
Because, once all the credit cards crumble and nobody's banks work anymore and society has to start over from scratch, that would be the perfect place for a zombie apocalypse to start.
Mm-hmm.
So that could be a great time to introduce some sort of worldwide horror or something like that to restart the human race or restart the societal.
You got me going on that one. I want a sequel to The Road. I want to know what happened to that little boy and how he fared after he left.
That's a good one. Now, see, for me, it would be Big Trouble in Little China.
Oh God, yes.
I want to know where the Pork Chop Express goes next.
Well, yeah, because he had a passenger at the end, right?
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, the monster hitchhiker on his tail.
All right. Did Angel's got a question? Did any of you have an author that inspired you?
Just one?
Yeah, I know. I was say I could list a couple.
Well, that kind of goes into my next question, and which is, what book changed your life?
Mine was Elizabeth Peters. She wrote an Amelia Peabody series, who is an archaeologist in the early 1900s. And this woman did not take crap from anybody. She just went off and did her thing. She has like the dashing husband, Radcliffe Emerson. And it is such a strong series with strong characters. And it's not like it's a little cheesy, but it's strong though. And, I remember being at my friend's house one day and I found a book and it was like the middle of the series and I saw it and it was The Ape Who Guards the Balance. I can't remember. I can't believe I remember that. I was like junior high. But I remember asking her, I'm like, hey, have you read this book? And she's like, no, it looked kind of boring. I'm like, do you mind if I take it? And she's like, no, that's fine. So I took the book and I read it and it got me into Egyptology, which got me into like historical fiction, which got me into just delving into knowledge and wanting to find out everything, and got me into storytelling, and also showed me strong female characters too, which is something I try to focus on and write about. And so it was just very impactful for me. Even though I don't write in that genre, the author herself was just so passionate and so wonderful in how she wrote that she crossed genres and she captured a large audience. And Amelia, Elizabeth Peters was just an amazing artist who sadly has passed away, but she is just amazing at storytelling, and it was very impactful.
Interesting. All right, Shawn, what about you? What book changed your life, or what author inspired you?
I worked in the library in high school when we had the Dewey Decimal System, primarily before computers. And I picked up until I picked up this book. I usually read Don Pendleton's Executioner or Jerry Ahern's Survivalist series, or sports books about sports figures. And I picked up Terry Brooks' Sword of Shannara. Never really was into fantasy. He's a Northwest author, and I devoured those books as they came out. That led me to love reading stuff, like Stephen King, and just reading for pleasure versus reading for escapism, I guess you'd say, because other books were kind of escapist books. And the author, to answer Angel's question, the author that inspired me the most is, that I was talking about that horror convention here in town, and I actually had lunch with a bunch of people, and I sat right next to Joe McKinney, and I'd already read his books, and chatted him up more about police procedure and police cars than writing. But he actually had read one of my books, and he said, you got to keep going. I was only 4 books into writing, I think, maybe 500,000 words, and he says, you're going to go somewhere, keep writing. And he really inspired me, really. Joe McKinney, he just passed a few months ago, and he's sorely missed. I always hit him up in back channel when I had a question, and he's definitely missed.
That's amazing. All right. So, DW, what about you?
Well, a couple that really inspired me were, and I'll be the first one to admit, I am nowhere near as much of a literary scholar as the rest of my company. There was a long time in my life where I didn't read. I watched stories. I loved stories, but I really didn't get into reading books for probably the past 8 or so years, 8 to 10 years. So I don't have the wealth to dig into that a lot of people do, and it's one of the things I'm trying to make up for right now. I'm trying to read as much as I can or listen as much as I can. As I mentioned before, my major input is audiobooks due to how my schedule works. But some of the things that really spoke to me and really interest me when it came to things like writing character and having character where you can understand their emotions, understand their life, and how that relates to the story and things that go around. There are things like Odd Thomas was a book that I really loved. I thought that the depth of character that Dean Koontz brought to that book and lets you understand how his life was so weird and so strange, and inspired the events that happened to him. I thought that was fantastic. Another one is the Dexter series. And one of the reasons why I really love that, and the books, I mean, the books are so totally different than the television show. Like the books are kind of like a character study. They're like deep into the mind of the person, and you kind of go on a trip with them, and you learn how these things affect them and how they make their decisions and all this kind of stuff. And the way that those characters work really, really spoke to me, and I think changed the way that I thought about writing characters, the things that I thought you could do with the character's thoughts through narrative and get that across to the reader. And the third one that I'll put kind of like the top tier of the things that really speak to me in books, it would be It by Stephen King. The way he related the horrors that happen to these characters, as well as cycling through the multiple characters that exist in this world and how they're affected by the things that are around them as well as the things that are after them, really showed a mastery of the craft. I think that was kind of one of the pinnacles of his career, is getting to that point right there. Me personally, anyway. So to answer a short question with a long answer, those are kind of the 3 things that really stand out to me.
Well, interesting. I have to say that Stephen King, just his ability to, you just tangibly feel the era he's writing. I always love it when he, starts off, like whether it was, Stand By Me or, anything. It's just, it takes you back in time, and it's just, he's incredible. So I can definitely see all that. Now, Morgana has asked a question. Let's see. Who is your favorite classic horror writer before 1970?
Oh. I'll just, okay. I don't know dates. I'm gonna say just Bram Stoker, because Dracula, I read that and I liked it because he intricated articles in there. So it wasn't just chapters and storytelling. There were articles and news clippings added into the story that I had never seen that before. So, it added to the story and helped tell the story. So that was kind of my first time seeing different things other than just a character telling a story. It was just news clippings, articles, all sorts of stuff just kind of added in. And I thought that was pretty cool.
Shawn, what about you?
I'd have to say George Orwell, because the horror is coming true. No. I'm sorry. I didn't
Hey,
read a lot of
Laura.
the classics, to be honest. No Lovecraft. I know I should not even be saying that out loud, but um, I think Kuntz is not really pre-70, but Kuntz maybe? I don't know. That's terrible. I can't go back to the classics.
DW.
I would say Lovecraft as well, but he was kind of tied with me, or I think actually Poe edges above him just a little bit.
Yeah.
I love Edgar Allan Poe.
I'm a hardcore Poe fan, so yeah.
His work is like music, the way that it flows and the rhythm and the melody of his prose. So I think, Poe is really my first love, I think, inside the horror realm, and kind of brought me to everything else that I found eventually after that.
Oh, she's saying Kuntz counts. I just want to do a shout out to Landa. We missed saying hi to her, and Laura just popped in. And Angel's got another question. When you're not writing, what do you like to do?
Be lazy. I just I like, I hang out with my family and I stream shows. So, or, working or reading, and just, I don't really go out much. Oh, I should.
What about you, Shawn?
Well, pre-COVID, we like to go to places, like tropical locales, but now it's a lot of streaming, a lot of, there's not a whole lot going on here. I live in Portland, Oregon, so we are not really locked down, but, draconian crap still. Shoot. Yes, I have 2 teens, and my wife and I have been married 28 years, so family's a big thing, family and streaming right now.
Okay, DW, what about you?
Easy answer is whatever my kids want to do, but if I can get them out of the house, it's going to be hopefully we can go somewhere and take a hike or something. I'm lucky enough we're not really locked into urban sprawl, so there's lots of trails, lots of mountains to hike, lots of stuff to do around here. And even in winter now, as long as the snow is not too deep, we can still kind of hike places. Take the dogs, let them run, that kind of fun stuff. If we can convince the kids to get out.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go with since COVID, I don't really go anywhere. But
we did a lot of camping the last couple of summers. We normally camp once or twice, but we did a lot.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. I think when you were going for your camping trip for your birthday, I asked you if you were going to find Bigfoot.
Yeah, I went to Lost Lake, and it's not lost anymore, but it was fun.
Okay, so what turns you on creatively, spiritually, and emotionally?
It's like a 3-part question.
That's one of my James Lipton questions.
Mine, I would say moments in time for what gets me going creatively. When I come up with a story idea, it's because I come up with a scene in my head. It's just something that happens. Like with one of my stories, one of my books features on asteroids and comets and meteorites hitting Earth. And it's because of a scene that actually happened to me where I was driving and there was a meteorite that went through, and it was seen through like New Mexico and Arizona and Mexico. And it lit up the sky, and it was just a moment in time, and it inspired my entire book. So it's kind of like I just kind of come up with scenes in my head, or I just see something on the side of the road, or think of something randomly, or inspired by a movie, and I get a scene, and I'm like, yeah, that'll be kind of cool. And I kind of build off of that. Spiritually, that's a very in-depth question. I have my faith. I have my relationship with who I believe in, and I try not to push that on people, but it's what helps me. And then what was it? Creatively, spiritually, and what?
Emotionally.
What motivates me emotionally? My family. They're my support system. They're there all the time. I was telling these guys earlier, there was something I did today that was pretty big, and I'm still kind of reeling from it. And if I didn't have my family there, and my boyfriend and everyone just being there standing by me and just supporting me. You know, they're my rock. So without them, I'd be lost.
Okay. What about you, Shawn?
Creatively, it used to be going places, vacations and whatnot. I'd get ideas from many of the vacations we've gone on. The second part of it, probably the outdoors. I feel at home in the outdoors. I have, I've almost 16 years of nonstop recovery, alcoholic, and so I have a higher power. And like Bethany said, I don't force my idea on anyone else, and my mind is open. The door's cracked wide open, and I'm just keep going forward, one foot in front of the other. A couple other things that I really fall back on is the golden rule: treat everyone how I want to be treated, and then rule 62, which is I don't take myself so damn seriously. Those help a lot. And the last part of it was what
Emotionally.
Emotionally. Man, my doggo, she centers my keel whenever I get spun out on anything. She's just the unconditional love that she gives all of us. And my doggo, Holly.
What about you, DW?
Oh, I would say creatively, I fall in line with just random thoughts that kind of happen. You're, for example, one of my books, I'm taking a walk on my break at work, and I see this rock sitting in the middle of the field, and it kind of inspires me to think, what would happen if none of the rest of this human-built complex was around us, but that rock still existed? What if we were in another world as, I don't know, parallel to this one, and we just had no humans? And that kind of led me to think of this whole world that was evolved out of dragons, and that kind of inspired, one of my middle grade books was, what would happen if there was another world that was inspired, that was only thing that evolved there was species related to dragons, and somehow a human showed up there. So it's like these random thoughts, these what ifs that kind of spark an idea, and then that kind of snowballs into 1,000 other things. Spiritual and emotionally, a lot of that comes down to, I think, the world around us, and especially my kids. I see them and I play with them every day, and they bring out the emotion in me that thinks, how do people get these emotions? What stirs them in people? What stirs other emotions in people? Where does all of this come from, and how does it affect our lives? And how do people lead their lives based on this information? Based on these stimuli. So that's kind of I guess that's kind of what makes me start thinking in those odd directions.
That's fascinating. All three of y'all are very interesting. This is making me want to talk to y'all more often. So what's
excuse
your...
me 1 second, guys. I'm sorry. My kid's calling. I got to run. Be right back.
We'll wait. Hey, Mark Eady. Mark Eady is always good to show up for our shows. So let's all say hey. Hey, Mark.
Hey, Mark.
Well, Hadley, Jamie wanted to hear your answers too. So how would you respond to that?
Well, let's see. Creatively, anything. I just get... You'll see a news thing or hear somebody talking about something, or just like DW talking about the dragons and the parallel universe. I'll hear that and then I'll start thinking, dragons, and I don't know. So creatively, like I said, it's pretty much anything and everything. So spiritually, I would say nature. I think that the glory of nature is the glory of the universe, or God, or goddess, or however you connect with it. And emotionally, I would say music. So
music is very impactful. It can definitely alter moods and inspire. Music's really good.
I think so. I do playlists when I'm writing to kind of get in that headspace and in that mood. Take me to a darker place.
I'll listen to island music if I'm writing something where it's traveling in the scenes. If I'm writing action or combat scenes, it's sometimes the heavy metal. I'll listen to some of that. And if I'm writing big long dialogue, or some kind of scene that's got a lot of emotion in it, I'll put on some country, listen to some I don't know, new country mainly, not the rap country, but the newer country.
The bro country.
I don't know. I call it rap country because you can put it to a rap beat. It's almost the same song, you know.
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
Denigrating women, you know, that kind of stuff, and every other word's about a beer.
Okay, yeah.
All right. Well, I think music is a great. I think it's interesting how art inspires art. Whether you see a piece of art that inspires a story, or it inspires a song, or you hear a piece of music and it inspires you to write. I just think that it's interesting how everything's connected. So, my next question. Oh, if you can meet anyone from the past or the present, who would it be and why?
I can't go first on this one. I gotta think it through. Hold on.
That is a difficult one. We want to recircle, guys.
Yeah.
I can go. I can do this one, and I'm gonna kind of steal DW's Poe. You know, I did read Poe's. That's one of the few classics I read. That to meet him in the era and that he lived would be very wild. And yeah, definitely.
So, which was your favorite Poe story?
The one where he was walled. The character was walled in.
The Cask of
Amontadillo or Monte.
Yeah.
That one really stuck out. I read that in high school, and I was just like, "Wow, that's crazy."
What about you, DW? I know you said you like Poe. So, which Poe is your favorite story?
I love the rhythm and the way that the Raven flows.
Oh, yeah.
But I want to say that my favorite is probably the Telltale Heart. I'm thinking of this guy, he's freaking out. He's, thinking this heart's going to beat and give him away. And he's got to keep a straight face, basically, he's trying to cover himself. And I think about that, the way that weighs on someone emotionally and tries to, you try to keep a hold of yourself. I think that's a fantastic character moment to write. And I'd love to, it'd be interesting to write something in that vein where our character had, this fantastic secret that they're trying to keep, and they know that someone else knows, but they're trying to pretend they don't know. They're trying to, get by and get away with it. And it's, I don't know. It's pretty powerful. That really kind of stuck with me. Maybe I was trying to get away with too much stuff in my younger life. I don't know.
Bethany, which one of the Poe stories was your favorite?
Okay, so I haven't read Poe.
Well, we're giving you homework.
I think I read some in high school, and I remember something about a beating heart. But that's kind of all I remember. So no judgment. I read a lot of fantasy books in high school. I read like Piers Anthony, stuff like that. So I didn't get into horror until like just maybe 10 years ago. So.
So you need to read a Poe story. So.
I do.
I like Hop Frog, the one about the midget with the revenge. Remember? No? Okay. It was an interesting one. But there were so many. There's the Fall of the House of Usher, and then there's the Red Plague one.
Mm-hmm.
There's just so many of them.
No, my very first book was inspired by that.
Really?
Yeah.
That's cool.
It was kind of like it was a strange kind of retelling about how a corporation basically created a plague of their own that would that they wanted to release, and basically so that they were the only ones that had the cure. They wanted to cleanse the world, and it was about a guy trying to get through it all and save the ones around him. So that one you can't find anywhere. That one I've since unpublished because I decided my first novel shouldn't be out there. So may rewrite it one day, but yeah, that one was a really, really good story too. The Mask of the Red Death, not necessarily mine.
Well, since we're talking about the Red Death, let me ask y'all this. How do you think the pandemic has impacted your writing in regards to zombies? Or has it? It might not have.
Mine hasn't really impacted it in regards to zombies. It's just kind of given me more opportunity to do stuff. It's also kind of seen, in a way, seeing human interaction in a real life scenario on how people react. Like, who would have thought that toilet paper was going to be the thing that everyone was coveting, like in the apocalypse, but or not apocalypse, but during a pandemic period. But it's interesting to see how people react and how many people, disbelieve stuff or believe stuff and all the conspiracy theories that base off of it. So for me, it was more of just seeing human interaction on what happens during something of this event. So.
Yeah, I found that incredibly interesting as well, because I'm sitting here watching people's reactions to lots of things and thinking to myself, in a lot of the fictional apocalypses we see, fictional pandemics you see, they're a lot more deadly and people react a lot more mildly. So it's very interesting to see how fear relates to people in real life and how it makes people make the choices that they make. When I don't know, a lot of it was just very strange, but personally in my life, it resulted in a lot more time for me to be able to write. And I've probably been the most productive I've been since I started writing because of being able to have more free time in my life.
Well, when the Black Death went through Europe, that when it was over was when the Renaissance period was there, because people were locked in their houses being creative. And I'm interested to see what's going to happen when all of this kind of settles, because like you said, a lot of people are being a lot more creative and producing more than they would have if they were out, traveling and going out and doing more socializing. But what about you, Shawn? What do you think?
My writing was impacted big time. My kids both were distance learning from home, and I'm tech challenged. I can't get all this stuff booted up and figured out. My wife's great at it, but both of them working from home really killed me a little bit on the productivity. It's funny. My first book I started writing in 2010, Trudge. Believe it or not, I'm not making this up. The virus is called Omega. It escaped from a level 4 lab in Wuhan, China, in the Hubei province. It was bioengineered, and they lost control of it. So they use it or lose it. They seeded America with it, and it had a consequence of the zombie apocalypse, which is thank God not happening right now. But
we'd be screwed if it was zombies.
I got lucky in all those different aspects. But then the last book I wrote was called Fury, and I channeled my own fury at what's happening as a result of the COVID, the virus, which I believe was inadvertently leaked or released from a lab. And I really, it was cathartic writing that book, because it kind of brought it full circle. The CCP is they invaded the United States to take over the growing regions and whatnot. And my protagonist is fighting back against them, and they're gonna finish the job they started with a new and enhanced bug. And that's the premise of my last book, Fury.
Well, I'm gonna have to read that. I'm interested.
This one right here.
You just happen to have it.
Just have a copy.
Placement.
Well, I think that's interesting. And just for the record, I think it was bioengineered myself. But yeah, I think that's
a conspiracy theory nowadays only has a half-life of about 30 days or so.
I know. Okay. So as a child, what did you want to be when you grew up?
I wanted to be a ninja.
Oh, that's awesome.
I love it.
My brothers were all into ninja stuff. Like, we were into Ninja Turtles. Even when we had to decide what we wanted to do and do a career test, I was like, how much does a ninja make? Like, I was all about it. I was a really bad ninja, by the way. I could not keep quiet. I was a horrible ninja.
The Scrooge
That's good.
McDucks
That's
of
good.
ninjas.
That's good.
Scrooge McDuck.
All right. Well, Shawn, what did you want to be?
I wanted to be a pilot, definitely. My father was in the Air Force. He wasn't a pilot. He was a SAC base down in California. But he took me to air shows, and I always wanted to be a pilot. And then I went and saw Top Gun in '86 when I was 18, and nothing came of it. I didn't join, but I still long to fly one day.
What about you, DW?
Yeah, I think there's something with boys and their dads. You know, when I was a kid, my dad ran his own business of DJs. He sent DJs out, and back then they were like wedding DJs and whatever you call the DJ company. I need a DJ for my wedding. All right, we'll send you one. And they also stock nightclubs and some different places like that. And I thought that was just the most amazing thing. So I grew up wanting to be a DJ. And that turned into making music and all kinds of other things that kind of spurred creativity in a lot of different areas. But that's kind of where I started a lot of my early life.
Cool. Oh, well, night, Angel. We're glad that you could be here.
So,
Thanks for coming, Angel.
Yeah, I wanted to teach college and sell antiques. That was like my two things I wanted to do. And I think the antique selling came from watching that Friday the 13th series where they like had the haunted objects. I loved that show.
That show was a lot of fun. I bought it on DVD a couple of years back, and I got to say it wasn't as good rewatching it as it was originally. But it was still fun.
Yeah, it was an old show, Bethany, before your time. That it was just these antique dealers. That it wasn't like Friday the 13th, like Jason. It was It was they went after haunted objects.
Oh, okay. You said antiques, so I was thinking like Ghost Whisperer because she was an antique.
It was kind of like.
Well, they inherited the store, didn't they? Like some relative died and they inherited the store. Then they found out all the objects inside the store were cursed in one way or another.
Yeah, it was kind of like Supernatural, but before, like Supernatural and X-Files, before there was an X-Files and a Supernatural.
That sounds awesome. Yeah, I'll have to look that up.
No, it was a lot of fun.
It was. Okay. What one story from your childhood explains best who you are?
Okay, sorry. So I grew up in a very conservative, strong religion-based Air Force military household. So my mother bought me a series of fairy tales when I was really little, and I still have these books because they were just so funny. She did not realize they were the original tellings of the fairy tales, not the Disney version. So the story that had the most impact on me was the first one I read of that, which was the girl with the red slippers, or the dancing slippers. And the only way that she could get away from the dancing slippers was they had to cut off her feet, and then like the bloody stubs were dancing away.
Oh my gosh.
To my mother's horror, this was the entire series of stories that she gave me. And that kind of opened my eyes to like, hey, there's other stuff out there than Disney. And, my parents are on board with what I do now. So that's awesome. But yeah, that one definitely stands out very much in my childhood.
What about you, Shawn?
I don't know. Stuart Little, maybe? Always adventurous.
Well, no, this is a story about you.
Oh, story about me. Okay.
Yeah.
My bad. A story about... Read it again for me, would you, one more time?
What one story about you best expresses who you are?
Wow. One story about me.
Yeah, about your childhood.
Yeah. Well, I was an only child, so I was always fucking bored. I was always begging for a brother or sister. All right. When I was little, living in Southern California, we lived there for a couple of years. I used to play with fire ants. My mom said I would go and put them on the trucks, Tonga trucks and stuff, and I would constantly get stung. And I guess today I don't often learn from my mistakes the first time. I used to have to get beaten on the head a couple of times. So maybe it's that.
And you've built up a toxicity to the fire ant venom.
I was so little, I don't remember, but she did used to have to check my Tonka toys for black widow spiders because Riverside, they were pretty prevalent.
So you're from down around San Diego?
I was born in Riverside, California, so inland from LA a little bit. But I've been in Portland for 50 years, so I'm an Oregonian.
Cool. Well, DW, what about you?
I'll tell you two, because one, Shawn reminded me of. So I was riding in my mother's car back when I want to say I was probably like 7 or 8, 6, 7 or 8, probably younger than that even. And I was playing with the cigarette lighter, because back then all the cars had cigarette lighters. And my mom tells me, "Now don't touch that, you're going to burn yourself." Well, what do? I don't trust anything anyone tells me until I learn it for myself. So I put it in, I pop it out, it's growing red, and I say, just to see if what she's telling me is true. So that's one. The other one, I'm actually going to cheat, and I'm going to give you a story from my son, because I know he got this from me, and it was a really interesting story. So we take him to we're going to take him to a new school, and he's finished up his preschool, and he's going to go and join kindergarten. In order to go into the kindergarten, the teacher gives him a test, and he's got to do A, B, and C, and D, all these sorts of things. She gets to this thing to test his cognitive skills, where she says, "I'm going to build this thing out of blocks. I have a pile of blocks. You have a pile of blocks. I'm going to build this out of blocks over here, and then you build the same thing over there. And basically mimic what I build, so that I can see that you're following along, and you're going to, you can show me that you can see what I'm building and duplicate it." Okay. So she goes through and she builds this little structure. Then he goes and he builds a structure. Now his structure isn't the same as hers. So instead of trying to make it look like hers, he goes to her structure, decouples it, and then rebuilds her structure so that it looks like his.
Nice.
So that is one of these things that that I really appreciate about him. But I got to say, I saw that stubbornness in his mind and said, "Yeah, you get that from me," because he basically didn't accept the world that he was given and decided he was going to recreate it the way that he wanted to. And that's kind of a stubbornness that I really encourage him about.
That's cool. All right, my last question, then we'll have to take some from our audience. What's your favorite song from high school that you still rock out to when you're alone?
Okay, I gotta Google songs from that year. Hold on.
I remember exactly where I was when Van Halen Jump came on. 1984, the Commons High School, playing hacky sack with a bunch of people. And someone had a boom box out there, and that song came on. And from the keyboard to the guitar, I was hooked on that song. And anytime that song comes on in the truck, I'll crank it up. My kids are there or not.
Good choice, by the way. What about you, DW?
Well, back in the day, most of what I listened to was gangster rap. I could today probably quote most of Snoop Doggy Dogg's lyrics. Since then, I've gone back and rediscovered a lot of music from that era that I really like. But yeah, I would say that or some Tupac songs are probably still some pleasures today.
We should compare notes on what shows we've been to. I've seen a lot of them back in the day. Me too. I was hip hop and gangster rap.
That's so funny. I can't think of anything. It wasn't really my generation, but we listened to a lot of like Led Zeppelin and Bob Marley when I was in high school.
Okay, so I'm Googling. I can't find like one particular song. All right, I was the girl. I was all into like Backstreet Boys. Like they were just my world. I was the teeny bopper. And it's definitely Backstreet Boys, not NSYNC. I'm sorry. But there's not one major song. I just kind of listened to whatever was on the radio.
All right. Now, Dottie is asking, has a family member influenced the direction of any of your books?
I'd answer yes to that.
Mhm.
When I was a kid, we moved cross country. We lived in Virginia and we moved to California. So basically, we had something of a cross country ride. And through 90% of that, my mom read the book It to us. And, that kind of fermented in my mind a lot of things. A lot of things. So yeah, people say that when you're writing, you should have a target audience, and the best thing to do for your target audience is have a target audience of one. Okay, so when I write my adult books, I generally have one person I write for, and when I'm writing a middle grade book, I have one I write for. When I write a middle grade book, I'm generally targeting my son. When I have an adult book I'm writing, I generally target my mother because I know she reads horror, and yeah, so I write in that sense, and I think that if she likes it, then my target audience of everybody who likes the same types of things that she likes is going to like it.
Yep.
Bethany? Go ahead, Shawn. No.
Are you ready, Bethany?
Nope. So go ahead.
My cousin Stephen Piantik, he was high functioning Downs, loved his country music. Always wore those starch Levi's and the big belt, and had his boom box with country music playing. And he passed prior to 50 years of age in the 80s. And I wrote him into my second book in the Rikers Apocalypse series, and I'm super glad I did. I was able to memorialize him in print, but also he's a fan favorite now. Definitely a fan favorite.
That's awesome.
His name's Steve-O is his nickname. We called him Steve-O when we were little at functions.
That's very cool.
Yes. Bethany?
So I guess my brothers were a major influence growing up because we would, like DW said, when he would travel, we would travel all the time. My dad was Air Force, so we would be in the RV and we just travel all the time. And in order to entertain ourselves, my brothers and I, we would make up games and stories and stuff in the back of the RV, and that's how we passed the time. So I remember my brother Rick, he was reading Sherlock Holmes, and I kind of snuck his book from him. And so I read The Speckled Band, and that got me on my Sherlock Holmes just fascination. I love Sherlock Holmes. So that kind of influences some of my writing. And then for the rest of it, it's just kind of how I told you before, how my parents were very conservative and didn't allow any of that stuff in the house. Well, now they're like the biggest contributors, where my parents will call me up and they will just be like, okay, we got an idea for the zombie story. Like, this is what's going to happen. And like, so they probably, I dedicated my first book to them because they are my biggest supporters. And they come up with half the ideas. Like, I can't take credit. They're the genius behind half my stories. So
Well, that's cool too. All right, Morgana's got another question for y'all. Have you based any of your characters you have killed off of someone you didn't like in real life? Dish the tea, people. Come on.
Yep.
Single answer.
Let's see, book 3 or 4 of my Surviving the Zombie Apocalypse series. There's a character trapped in about 12 days in. She's trapped in an airport, and she's a barista. She's a barista, and her boss, Richard Less, they would call him Dickless. He's a zombie now, and he's harassing her in the upstairs office that she's shut in, basically. I based him off of one of my old bosses when I was waiting tables in the late 80s, early 90s. And I won't say his name, but he was a Where's Waldo type character and always poking his head around to see what you're doing,
I kind of remember that, just a little off track, but Shawn, I remember that story. I think I'm remembering it right. But didn't you reference Dean Koontz as he was like the dean of a college in that story? And you were like, Dean Koontz, and I thought it was just a fun.
That might have been another. That was a Rikers Apocalypse.
Okay.
Koontz, so it was just kind of.
I just remember the barista, and I just remember
that,
reading that.
That is Rikers Apocalypse. Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
I'd say I probably have, but I can't really pick any out because a lot of my characters are generally based on real people, or at least specific characteristics that I pick up on people, because some of that stuff, it's like you can't make up. You know, people have some of the weirdest characteristics that you couldn't invent for fiction, and to be able to take certain characteristics that you've seen from people in your life and imbue them into characters, brings some of your writing to life. And so I'm sure that I've based characters off of people that I've killed, because I kill a lot of people. But I don't know that I've ever actually done it intentionally.
I can't. I don't think I have. But I'm still kind of a newbie, so I don't have as many opportunities at the moment. But
Get cracking. Come on.
Well, I got the time now, so. But people like DW said, people influence my characters, but I don't base a character solely off of one person. They just may be influenced by certain personalities and aspects of people. But I mean, I do have a list of people that have fates destined. They're just not written yet.
Yeah, I would say that I haven't killed them off yet. It's going to be good when it happens. But and Morgana knows who that is, so. All right. So, all right. Well, that's all the questions that I had for tonight. I hope we can do this again sometime, guys. I'd really like for us to be able to start doing this more often, so we could kind of offer people a way to get to know us better. So we've got such a big group out there in our community that it would be nice. So
Definitely, that'd be nice.
Sounds good. I had fun.
Now let's go through and we'll start with Bethany, and then we'll go to Shawn, and then DW, and just let us know what you're working on and where people can find you online, and what you got coming out next and all.
So I'm working on the Gabby Jones off of Kindle Vella. It's Gabby Jones and the Curse of the Swamp Witch. So I'm coming out with new episodes of that, and still working on my Highway series, as well as Gabby Jones' premiere story. You can find me on Bethany Stutsman author page and the Horror Writers Inc. group.
I have book 4 of my Writer's Apocalypse series with editor right now. It's entitled The Plea, and it's going to drop simultaneous ebook, audiobook, print in February. I don't have an exact date because my narrator's still, we're working on that. And I'm currently writing book 16, in my Surviving the Zombie Apocalypse series. It's going to be called Family. And lastly, I'm starting a military/thriller suspense series called The Hitter. Book 1 is Quiet War, and I'm hoping to drop it later part of 22.
Cool. What about you, DW?
So right now I'm working on a pretty a vast horror novel. I want to say I'm probably about a third of the way through it, but I expect to have it out probably middle of next year, towards the end of next year or so. And then I'll be making another entry into my Big Sky Terror series. I'll be writing that in the spring and probably have that one out towards the end of summer or so. This has been a really big year for me, 2021. Started a small press in November of the year before when the pandemic hit, and 2021 has been like the deluge, where everything has hit the editor, everything's come back from the editor, and basically everything I had sitting on deck is pushed out in 2021. So now I'm in the phase of rebuilding, right? Getting all that stuff back together. So I expect to have probably 3 books out next year. The one I'm working on right now, the next one in the Big Sky Terror series, and another middle grade book. People can find me at dwhitz.com, and of course at our group here.
Awesome. All right, guys. Well, I hope that y'all will come over. I don't know if y'all know this, but Morgana Calder, who's been asking the questions tonight, she does our Weird Inc. interviews, her and Joseph Hansen, who y'all know from our writers group. And they're supposed to get with y'all if you want to do a launch on one of your books and come do an interview with us. We would love for you to do it. And we'll put a little preview of it on our radio station. So, we can get you out there and hopefully spread the word about your wonderful work.
Hey, Hadley, I forgot to drop my social. It's ShawnChesser.com. You can get to all my other social media that way. Thank you.
Cool.
I was reminded by DW.
All right, guys. Well, that's going to do it for tonight. Tune back in every night this week for getting to know our feature authors on Horror Writers Inc. And this has been a great session. I really look forward to getting to know everybody better, and I hope to talk to y'all soon. So
All right. Good
take
hanging with you.
care.
Thanks.
Stay
you.
weird.
Thank you.
You guys have a happy New Year.